We're starting to get very close to the trade deadline, and I don't just mean for Major League Baseball. I'm talking about your fantasy leagues too. Most of you do have a firm deadline, so you don't have that much longer to buy low. And of course, you want to take advantage of some deals before the Major League trade deadline, and a lot of these players possibly will be switching clubs. And one of those players could be a former MVP who's having a very down season. That's Cody Bellinger. Now, the Cubs have been a very big disappointment overall. They're not out of it, but they definitely don't feel like they're in it. And that offense is just loaded with underachievers, especially in fantasy. Now, I've been very hesitant to call anybody there really a buy low, despite the underachievement. Dansby Swanson feels like, I mean, what is his real upside at this point? This the age 30 season, I'm not sure that you're going to get enough out of him to make it worth buying. Nico Horner, I guess he's starting to hit, but he's not stealing bases. So what is he giving you in fantasy? Not that much. Cody Bellinger, well, he hasn't given you much, but we know what the upside is. And I know it's easy to say, look what he did years ago. Look what he did last year. And I've also said it doesn't matter that much at this point. Last year is long gone. This season is just what you have to focus on. But we know with Bellinger, a change of scenery could help. We're also talking about a guy who just last year with the Cubs had a very good season, hit 307, 26 home runs, 97 RBIs, and stole 20 bases. And while this year has definitely been much more disappointing, it's really not that bad. I guess it feels worse than it is based on expectations. His batting average is 269. I mean, not 300, but also not the lows that we saw when he was with the Dodgers before getting shipped, where he's barely able to scrape by at a 200 clip. Only 9 home runs. I mean, that's the real disappointment here, right? The power hasn't been there. So you got to wonder, will it come back just because he shifts to another team? The real question is, and also the reason why he's a buy low right now, is injury. He's actually on the IL still. He's about to start some on-field batting practice. Reportedly, he's able to swing a bat without really feeling too much discomfort from that broken finger. The trouble he has is throwing the ball, and fielding might be an issue, but that's fine. Put him at DH, let him swing away, and, there might be a club who could use a guy with his upside. And it won't be much longer before he is able to go out and take some reps in the outfield. Now, it goes without saying, if you're going to make a trade for Bellinger, you're taking on risk, right? We already know this. Maybe he doesn't do anything any better than he has with Chicago, right? Maybe he doesn't really fully recover from that finger. I'm not going to say this is risk-free. This is why it's a buy low. I would only recommend this kind of move if you are in the middle of the pack, a fringe contender, or down in the standings, and you really need to take that chance and get a big boost. And for different reasons, but similar situation, if you need a shot in the arm, you might want to roll the dice on Royce Lewis, who has had a great season when he's actually healthy. Now, it would take too long for me to go through all the list of injuries and how many games he's missed just since being a major leaguer, and of course, the minor leagues. I mean, you know the old saying, glass bones, paper skin. Look, Royce, at some point, he will stay healthy for a prolonged period of time, I'd like to think. But even so, if you only get him for a few weeks, there's really not that much season left, right? He can help you because when he has been on the field, in the batter's box, he has been nothing but great as a pro. In his 99 plate appearances with the Twins this year, he was slashing a robust 292, 354, and 685 with 10 homers and 18 RBIs. That's just in 24 games. I mean, at one point, it seemed like he was hitting a home run basically every game. So despite how great he's been, he is definitely a buy low because whoever's got him has got to be thinking the same thing. How many games am I going to get at this guy before he goes back in the IL? Is it worth it to just sell him off and get something in return? So, look, I think it's worth it. I will take even just a couple of really good weeks from a player like him as opposed to the rest of the season of mediocre production from somebody else who clogs up your lineup. Sadly, mediocre might be the best way to describe Paul Goldschmidt's season. A once great player for fantasy, former first-round pick. It seems like that is long past. I mean, this is another player who, like Bellinger, just last year was still really good. He helped you across the board. Yeah, the steals aren't there like they used to be, but still, the power, the average. I mean, it didn't seem like Goldschmidt's days as a fantasy contributor were over. It does feel like that this year. He's only batting 225 at this stage of the game. He does have 14 home runs, 38 RBIs, I mean, that's passable, but still, this is not what you expected from wherever you drafted him. And you've got to be concerned about the long term prognosis, given that every month it's been consistently mediocre. Now, Goldschmidt will not be traded. They've pretty much already made that clear. And in fact, St. Louis, believe it or not, are still technically in it as far as a wild card race. They might actually be buyers, although they're not going to get anybody on offense really to add to that lineup or to even threaten Goldschmidt. Of course, he'll still be out there every day. They'll probably just add some pitching. But at the very least, we know Goldie is out there. He's going to be still every day starting at first base. What can we get from him? Hopefully better. One thing I will say that is interesting is that he was finally dropped down in the lineup. As soon as the second half began, the Cardinals put him batting seventh, which is really a weird feeling for him, I'm sure. But maybe this would spark something because on his first day batting lower in the order, he hit a home run, and then the next day he went 2 for 4. Now, this doesn't mean he's going to do a complete 180 and look like his former self, but you never know. Second half guys pick things up. This is a guy who definitely is capable, and I do believe he's got still some thunder left in that bat. But most of all, I really don't feel like you should have to give up much to get him just because that batting average has been terrible. St. Louis offensively has been mostly terrible, and Goldschmidt hasn't done anything to really inspire much confidence lately. So if you want to get a guy like him on the cheap, it's a good time. I mentioned St. Louis possibly buying, especially for starting pitching. Well, one guy who's been rumored might be in a Cardinals uniform in about a week is Chris Bassett, who's right now with Toronto. Bassett is kind of the Goldie of pitchers, although he's never been quite that good. But this is a veteran, he's been around many years, solid, consistent, not flashy. He gets the job done, and he's been actually mostly okay this year, but he's had a rough patch recently. Over his last 3 starts, he's allowed 12 earned runs in 16 and two-thirds innings. His ERA has jumped up about half a run, now sits at 3.74 on the season. Again, that's still not bad, but again, it looks like he's not getting better as the season goes on, and now there's rumors he might get shipped off somewhere. But this is a good thing because if he does get moved, he'll be out of Toronto and onto a more favorable situation, not just a team that has a better record, but possibly a better home park as well. As far as those last 3 starts, I'm not really too worried. Every pitcher has these patches. Again, it's not like he got obliterated. Very uncharacteristically, he walked 4 batters in the game twice in a row and then settled down with his next one. But I don't think this is any sort of ongoing issue. And again, I feel like we could see just basically what we normally see from Chris Bassett the rest of the way, just with the possibility of some more wins. No, this is not a move. If you buy low on Chris Bassett, that's going to single-handedly help you get to the playoffs or win in the playoffs. I can't say anything even close to that, but this could solidify your rotation, maybe stabilize your ratios. Again, you don't have to give up that much to get him. And now, believe it or not, talk about a team that could be a buyer at the deadline, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, they've been linked heavily to Jazz Chisholm. We'll see if anything happens there. A couple teams are interested in Jazz. They've also been linked to another player who would probably be a little bit cheaper and help them in the outfield. That's Taylor Ward of the Angels. And Ward himself has also been, kind of thrown out there as a very strong trade possibility. Now, the Angels don't have to trade Taylor Ward, but it would make sense because they just should be sellers flat out. Now, Ward is under team control for, I believe, 2 more years, but this is also what makes him attractive to other teams. And the Pirates, this makes sense, it's logical fit because they wouldn't have to give up a lot to get him. He could help them in the short term and also not mean that they have to give up a lot for the future. They'll still have him for the next couple of years. A veteran, someone who could give them a boost in the outfield. So guys like Sawinski don't have to be in the lineup that often. Taylor Ward started out the season really well and then cooled down. He hasn't quite picked it back up at a great pace, but again, change in scenery could definitely help given how very underwhelming the Angels have been, let's just say offensively. And Ward is also a big time underachiever. In fact, looked as far as expected slugging compared to actual slugging, one of the biggest underachievers in the majors among qualified hitters. And as far as what Ward gives you, it's modest power, decent amount. He can get you decent average, 250s, 260s. In fact, you know what? Just take a look at what he did last year. That's almost exactly what he's done this year. In fact, if you take a look at a side-by-side comparison, in the first 97 games of last year, in 356 at-bats, He hit 253 with 14 home runs and 47 RBIs. In his first 97 games of this season, 354 at-bats, 14 home runs, 44 RBIs. The only difference is the batting average is down. He's only hitting 229 at that point. But if you look at the expected batting average, it's the same as last year. Basically, it's at 251. So his average will probably come up about 20, 30 points. His slugging should come up. And this is somebody who can, provide some solid power and run production in the heart of a lineup. Again, I'll just caution there's no guarantee that a guy like Ward or any of these players do get traded. This is still all speculation. We're going to find out pretty soon. You've got to have enough confidence that if a player stays put, he's still going to be productive. Based on the underachievement we've seen with Ward, even if he's still a halo by the year's end, he should still be doing better than he is now, and he can still be a solid fantasy asset. Keep making those offers. Keep looking to buy low as much as you can until your trade deadline hits. And of course, keep it locked here throughout the major league trade deadline for the latest news and advice. And that includes stashing those prospects. The latest Beat the Breakout is out. If you haven't checked it out yet, here it is.